You're watching Silver News Daily. Subscribe for more.
There are a lot of countries in deep, serious trouble financially, and it all goes back to the same thing, and that's having a currency that has no value. Okay, if you don't know what value is and all you know is price, you can't run an economy. And holy cow, I never dreamed of $3,500 gold. But what should be obvious is that wasn't the top. The top is in front of us. What's happening, gold is not increasing in value. The dollar is decreasing in value, and the solution is simple. Get rid of the dollar, get rid of the pound, get rid of the lira, the marks, all of the currencies, go to gold.
The world is hurtling toward a financial reckoning, and silver is about to be thrust into the center of the storm. Imagine waking up and seeing silver not at $30, not even $100, but shattering past $1,000 an ounce. Sounds impossible? Not if you've been paying attention to what the BRICS nations are doing behind the scenes. While the West debates interest rates and inflation targets, China, Russia, and their allies are hoarding silver at an unprecedented pace, cutting out Western markets entirely and buying directly from miners. They're not doing this because they're guessing, they're preparing. For what? A collapse. A global financial reset that could decimate the US dollar and fiat currencies around the world. This isn't some fringe conspiracy, it's unfolding right now. The US Treasury just injected over $43 billion in early May to prop up its debt. Japan is dumping treasuries. Central banks are grabbing gold with both hands. But quietly, methodically, BRICS is cornering silver. And here's the kicker. Silver isn't just money anymore. It's the most critical industrial metal of the future, powering solar panels, electric vehicles, AI systems. There's not enough to go around, and the East knows it. So the real question is, if they're preparing for a monetary collapse by stockpiling silver, why aren't you? Stay with me, because what I'm about to show you will completely change how you see silver, the dollar, and the economic future we're racing into.
I was born in 1946, and I graduated from high school in 1964. And at that time, young men in the U.S. faced the draft. So I didn't have the money to go to college, and I thought I'll join the Marine Corps and get it over with. And the Gulf of Tonkin incident had happened a month before. So I go through boot camp in San Diego, and they came through and said anybody that can pass a 2-year college equivalency and has 20/20 vision and good health that would like to be an officer, you could apply for flight training. And I thought about it, and I thought, let's see, as a private, I make $75 a month. And if I'm a second lieutenant with flight pay, I'd make $405 a month. So when I got out of college, I went to work in computers for Ross Perot, and I did that for 2 or 3 years, but it was really boring. I mean, you can work in computers for a year and never see that you had accomplished very much. So I was bored silly, and I used the remainder of my GI Bill to get a flight instructor's permit. And I was flying out of this airport in Danbury, Connecticut, and it kept flying through the aircraft with fuel tanks in them. And the United States exported about 90% of the small planes in the world. And there was a tiny group of pilots. Hang on a sec. Hey, Rock, be nice. Shut up. Come on. And then, so I delivered 240 small planes all over the world: Australia, New Zealand, Japan, Sweden, Finland, Germany, Switzerland, Italy, South Africa, Egypt, Sudan. I delivered airplanes just about everywhere. And while I was doing that, I set about 15 world records in different events. And I was in an air race from Paris to New York to Paris in 1981. And the president of the French Aero Club wanted me to fly with him in another race from Paris to Libreville in 1984. So we had engine problems. We had to go back to Paris. We were out of the race. And he was really disappointed because his main competition in France was going to win the race and get all the publicity.
While most investors still fixate on gold as the ultimate hedge, BRICS nations are quietly executing a strategy that could reshape the entire global financial landscape. And it all begins with silver. Behind closed doors, countries like China and Russia are no longer relying on the US-dominated COMEX or London exchanges to get their hands on precious metals. Instead, they're making direct deals with miners, buying silver straight from the source. This is more than just a trade move. It's a declaration of independence from the dollar. By bypassing traditional Western systems, BRICS is severing ties with the financial mechanisms that have propped up US dominance for decades. This isn't theory. It's happening now. Reports confirm China's state-owned firms are engaging in private contracts with miners in Latin America and Africa, funneling physical silver into national reserves without a trace in the open markets. This stealth accumulation creates two devastating effects. First, it dries up supply for Western investors. And second, it tightens global inventories in a way that's nearly invisible until it's too late. The West still assumes silver is a commodity like any other, priced by futures contracts and market speculation. But BRICS treats it as something far more dangerous to the old system, real money. The implications are staggering. As BRICS prepares its own trade settlement system backed by tangible assets, silver plays a central role. And with every ounce they accumulate outside the dollar's reach, they're chipping away at the foundation of fiat currencies. If silver becomes a backbone of BRICS trade, the dollar isn't just weakened, it's dethroned. And when global trust in the dollar begins to crack, the flight to real assets will be ferocious. Silver isn't just being bought, it's being weaponized.
Okay, it's actually the world's economy. If you passed Economics 101 and if you look at the debt situation in the world, the world is awash in debt that we all understand is never going to get paid. And the U.S. has the world's reserve currency. It's had it for 81 years. And typically, over time, the French, the Italians, the British, you get to be the world's reserve currency for 80 to 82 years. So we are right there in the envelope that suggests a change could be right around the corner. Now, some of the stuff that's going on, I sent you an article. We got the Trump tariff tantrum. And of course, Trump comes in and says, okay, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this. And he doesn't understand that when you attack someone else, it's perfectly natural for them to attack you. And I sent you a piece that talks about Japan, which is the largest holder of U.S. debt. It's selling treasuries like crazy, which of course drives interest rates up. And I think we have $7 trillion in short-term treasuries this year that has to be refinanced. And I believe, and I'm going to step way out of the limb, and I'm going to chop the limb behind me. I believe we're in a slow motion crash of the U.S. dollar, which, of course, is going to affect everything in the world. Europe is a total basket case, okay? We won't even talk about the leadership in Europe is so weak, it's staggering. There was a video clip of Starmer and the Chancellor of Germany and Macron last week in a train going to Kiev to see Zelensky. And when the photographers entered the rooms, they grabbed a baggie and a Coke spoon and hid them. And I thought, this is insane. Okay, we know Zelensky's a cokehead. When you see people doing things as stupid as Zelensky's done for 3 years, and Macron saying we're going to put French troops in, and the British saying, we're going to put French troops in. Now, let me give you.
As BRICS nations decouple from the dollar and hoard silver behind the scenes, another force is tightening the noose around global supply, industrial demand. And this isn't a slow burn. It's a full-blown acceleration. Silver isn't just money to the East, it's fuel for the future. From solar panels to electric vehicles to AI data centers, silver is the irreplaceable metal making it all possible. And right now, demand is outpacing supply in a way that's never been seen before. The solar industry alone is projected to consume up to 98% of current silver reserves by 2050. That's not a typo. That's nearly every available ounce being vaporized by a single sector. Governments are throwing billions into green tech, chasing net zero goals with reckless urgency. But there's a catch. High-efficiency solar cells can't function without silver. There's no substitute, no workaround. Every panel, every battery connection, every EV on the road, it all depends on silver. And with mandates pushing adoption faster than supply chains can adjust, a critical bottleneck is forming. This isn't decades away, it's unfolding right now in real time. AI infrastructure is piling on too. Data centers demand advanced cooling systems, ultra-conductive materials, and resilient electronics. Guess what makes it all work? Silver. Combine that with soaring demand from consumer electronics, 5G, and medical tech, and what you get is a perfect storm of consumption. But here's the problem. Supply can't keep up. The mining sector is growing modestly, but nowhere near the pace needed to meet this tidal wave of industrial need. This isn't just a shortage. It's a structural collapse in the making. The industrial squeeze is here, and when it collides with monetary demand from BRICS and panicked investors, the result won't be a spike. It'll be a detonation.
We should set records from Paris to Stockholm, Paris to Copenhagen, Paris to London, Paris to Naples. I said, yeah, we can do that. It's no problem. It's easy. It just costs $1,000 every time you apply for a record. Nah, we don't want to do that. I got a better idea. Why don't we fly through the Eiffel Tower? And I said, nah, we don't want to do that. It's already been done. He said, no, everybody thinks it's been done, but actually during World War II, there were cables across it to make sure that didn't happen. I said, really? And he said, tell you what we'll do. You do the flying because you're a much better pilot than I am. And I'll be on the ground talking to you on the radio. And then you take the blame and I'll take the credit. And I said, let me think about this. So I take the blame for flying under the Eiffel Tower, and then you take the credit. He said, yeah, you got it. What?
Sounds like a raw deal to me.
No, well, it gets even better. Okay. So we did exactly what he said. I think we had 13 photographers on the ground. You could do that 40 years ago. You could not do it today. It's dead easy to do. It was safe. There was nothing to it. So I was over in Paris for another air race 6 months later, and I went over to this guy's apartment, and he had one room dedicated to the flight. And every picture that all of these photographers took, he had all over the walls. I thought, this is really cool. Man, this is so cool. And I looked and looked and looked, and he had a loop, okay, of the airplane. I had a cameraman inside the airplane, and he had a loop showing the airplane flying under the tower again and again and again. And I thought, God, this is so cool. But then I realized there was one thing missing.
But demand is only half the equation. On the other side lies a hard truth most investors don't want to face. Silver supply is under siege. Yes, global mine production is forecasted to grow slightly, about 2% in 2025, pushing output to around 844 million ounces. But this modest rise is a mirage. It's nowhere near enough to feed the industrial beast we just discussed. And worse, that new production? It's already being swallowed up, primarily by China and BRICS-aligned nations who are buying straight from the mines, diverting supply before it ever hits Western markets. This means the West is left with the scraps, and even those are shrinking. Projects in Canada and Chile are ramping up, but operational hurdles, regulatory bottlenecks, and base metal price suppression are throttling momentum. Zinc prices, for instance, are so weak that many base metal mines, where silver is a byproduct, are shutting down or scaling back. And without those operations, the silver they'd normally produce simply vanishes from the global ledger. So yes, the headline numbers suggest growth. But dig deeper, and it becomes clear. The supply chain is fragile, fragmented, and already under immense stress. The silver that's being mined is vanishing before it even has a chance to be traded. And if Western investors suddenly wake up and scramble to secure physical metal, good luck. Because what's left in Western vaults may already be spoken for, or worse, just a paper promise with no silver behind it. The system is running on fumes, and the price hasn't caught up yet. But when it does, it won't climb slowly. It'll leap.
In gold coming into the United States, that's something saying something's going on. The Japanese saying we're not going to accept tariffs on Japanese cars. That is trying to say something. What we have got, and I'm not going to blame Trump for 100% of it, because most of the problem goes back to prior administrations, to Obama, to Biden, to Bush, to Clinton. We've been on the spending spree. We are bankrupt. And what people are doing is they're rushing to a safe haven. Now, what's really interesting to me, it's not the amount of gold coming in or the price of gold increasing. It's a dichotomy between the price of gold and the price of silver. Okay? There is this rush into gold that is not associated with the rush into silver. However, I'm seeing intelligence reports saying the Chinese have started literally in the last week telling their people to buy silver. Now, if you've been around that long, you remember gold hitting $50 in 1980 and almost $50 in 2000. Not gold, silver, almost $50 in April of 2011. We have a financial crisis going on. It's invisible to most people. It's true of the bond markets. It's true of the European market. It's true of the euro. It's true of the dollar. It's true of the Japanese yen. It's true of the Chinese yuan. We are entering an area of total chaos. Now, I'm in the midst of writing an article about a mining company literally right now. And I'm saying we're going to see things we have never seen before. Nobody's going to predict it accurately because we are off the edge of the known area. We're going to see things. I've seen reports that say the Trump administration wants to revalue gold at tens of thousands of dollars an ounce, and it could happen.
Now here's where the story turns darker. Behind all the physical scarcity, all the industrial pressure, there's another force distorting the silver market from within: COMEX, the heart of the Western paper silver system. This is where institutional giants place their bets, using futures contracts to control the narrative without ever touching a single ounce of physical metal. For years, critics have sounded the alarm. Silver's price isn't real. It's engineered. And the battlefield is the COMEX, where massive short positions by a handful of players keep the price suppressed, detached from supply and demand fundamentals. Let's be clear. The evidence is murky, and manipulation is a hotly debated topic. But one thing is undeniable. Trading volumes and delivery patterns on COMEX don't match the physical realities we're seeing on the ground. Gold saw 1.66 million ounces delivered in May alone. That kind of activity suggests institutions are no longer content to just trade paper. They're taking delivery. And if that trend spills over into silver, the house of cards starts to wobble. Because here's the truth. There's far less physical silver than the paper market implies. The illusion of abundance is maintained by confidence, by the belief that the system works. But if even a small percentage of traders demand physical delivery, the leverage blows up. Vaults could be drained, and spot prices, tied to this paper charade, would be forced to reprice violently. And guess who's watching it all unfold? BRICS. They're not betting on COMEX. They're not trusting vault receipts or settlement delays. They're taking the real thing. And if Western investors catch on and start pulling physical metal out of the system, the short squeeze could be unlike anything we've ever seen. COMEX may not collapse outright, but its credibility will. And with it, any illusion that silver's current price reflects reality.
I'm dead against every war. Nothing is ever accomplished in war. And the only thing that happens, there are no winners. There are only losers, and one side loses a lot more than the other side. Now, the amazing thing is that Europe has committed financial suicide via the sanctions, and it's actually strengthened Russia. Now, you were talking about the Einstein quote, and that is, insanity is doing the same thing again and again and again and expecting the different results. I believe that the number, I think there have been somewhere between 1 million and 1.5 million Ukrainian soldiers killed in the last 3 years. So when Macron is talking about 3,000 or 5,000 troops, or Starmer's talking about 3,000 or 5,000 troops, or Estonia is talking about the Girl Scout troop they're going to arm, that's a joke. I mean, the Russians kill that much in a weekend. And the interesting thing is that from the mainstream media, it's totally biased. Everything you're being told is a lie. Ukraine and NATO have been losing this war right from the get-go. Ukraine actually initialed a peace agreement in March of 2022, and the British Prime Minister at the time, Boris Johnson, said, no, you don't want to stop fighting. You could steal as long as we keep shipping weapons to you. So keep fighting. But that's killed 1.5 million Ukrainian soldiers. And during World War II, the United States, in 4 years of combat, only lost 400,000 troops. That's how devastating that war has been to Ukraine. And the fact of the matter is, the fellow who was the head of the CIA under Joe Biden, Burns, was the ambassador to Russia. And he said 30 years ago, if you try to bring Ukraine into NATO, that is a red line that the Russians will not allow you to cross, and they will go to war. The amazing thing is, it's a totally one-sided war. Everybody in the West is lying about what's actually happening. There is no way Ukraine could possibly win that war. And the idea of encouraging Russia to use nuclear weapons, that's insanity.
Just before we get going, we just launched the official Silver News Daily Telegram. To kick things off, we're running a 10-ounce silver giveaway. Yes, real physical silver, not a voucher, not digital credits, actual bullion. This Telegram will be our new home for real-time silver discussions, market insights, collection picks, and everything precious metals. It's where the community truly comes alive. Here's how to enter the 10-ounce silver giveaway. Be subscribed to Silver News Daily on YouTube. Turn on the notification bell. Comment 10-ounce giveaway on 3 separate videos. Be an active member of the Telegram group and say hi. Once we hit 500 active Telegram members, we'll pick one lucky winner to receive 10 ounces of silver shipped directly to you. So get in early, stay active. All of this manipulation, all this quiet accumulation, is happening against a backdrop of monetary chaos that's accelerating by the day. Central banks are in full panic mode, printing, buying, scrambling to prop up their own currencies as inflation eats away at public trust. Just last month, the Federal Reserve injected a staggering $43.6 billion into the Treasury market, a move that reeks of desperation. Japan is offloading U.S. Treasuries at scale. These aren't just monetary blips, they're signals of a system cracking under its own weight. And when fiat currencies begin to wobble, history shows us exactly where capital runs: gold and silver, the only real, unforgeable assets. But this time, it's different. This isn't a slow drift, it's a stampede. The dollar is losing ground globally. De-dollarization is no longer a fringe concept, it's a geopolitical reality. BRICS isn't just diversifying, they're actively building a new financial order. And silver is central to it. Meanwhile, inflation expectations are no longer speculative, they're baked in. Food, energy, housing, all rising. The dollar's purchasing power is eroding by the month. And unlike previous cycles, there's no clear off-ramp. Interest rate hikes, they're barely containing inflation and threatening to collapse the debt market in the process. This economic environment is the perfect storm for silver. It's monetary metal with industrial muscle. It thrives on chaos, scarcity, and broken trust. And right now, we're seeing all three all at once. The old playbook, stocks, bonds, and balanced portfolios, offers no protection in this new era. Investors are waking up to the reality that fiat money is dying. And when that realization hits mainstream, the scramble for silver will be unstoppable.
The British Army only has 3,000 combat people, and they're going to send them to Ukraine to fight Russia when Russia supplied low-cost resources to Europe for years. Russia was responsible for the financial success of Europe. If you go back to when the U.S. blew up Nord Stream, the Chancellor of Germany was in Washington the day it happened, and he was in Washington to give permission to the United States to blow up Nord Stream. And nobody talks about this except me. There were actually 4 pipelines. 3 of them got blown up. Now, that's how we know the United States military blew it up. Because our woke military today is so incompetent that they can't blow up a pipeline and succeed. So you've got this situation where the German economy has been destroyed over the last 2.5 years because of the lack of cheap energy, yet they could actually have natural gas flowing to Germany tomorrow just by turning on the tap, and they refused to do that. So the United States started the war. It went back 30 years ago. They want to destroy Russia. Napoleon tried the same thing. Hitler tried the same thing. And the result is going to be exactly the same. So you were talking about geopolitical events. We're so close to World War III, and there's a very convincing argument that governments start wars when they're bankrupt. Okay, when there's no way out, when they have to finally fess up, say, okay, we bankrupted our country, they start wars. And it certainly appears that that's the case.
But if you really want to understand how silver could launch to $1,000 and beyond, you have to look at one of the most overlooked signals in the entire market, the gold to silver ratio. This isn't just a statistic, it's a historical trigger. And right now, it's screaming that silver is wildly undervalued. For decades, this ratio has served as a compass for investors. When it climbs above 80 or 90, it almost always precedes a massive silver rally. And today, we're flirting with extremes, ratios north of 85, even hitting 90 recently. That's the market flashing a red warning light. Let's break it down. Historically, the gold to silver ratio has hovered around 40 to 60. At those levels, silver and gold are moving somewhat in tandem. But when the ratio stretches far beyond historical norms, it doesn't stay there. It snaps back. And when it does, silver doesn't just catch up, it explodes. We saw this in 1980 when the ratio collapsed from over 80 to 17. Silver rocketed to nearly $50. In 2011, it happened again. And now, all the conditions are in place for a third, possibly even more extreme, reversion. Gold is already on the move, hitting all-time highs and soaking up capital from nervous central banks. But silver? It's still sitting there, suppressed, ignored, underpriced. That's what makes this setup so powerful. When the ratio reverts, and it always does, silver could double, triple, even quadruple in value just to restore balance. And that's without factoring in the industrial squeeze, the monetary panic, or BRICS tearing down the dollar system. The ratio isn't just a number, it's a ticking time bomb. And when it detonates, silver will rewrite the rules.
When I was a 20-year-old fighter pilot, I was just full of myself. Okay, I go into a squadron, I'm going to be a hotshot pilot. And I went up to the guy who was the best pilot squadron. I said, I want to be the best pilot of the squadron. How do I do that? And he said, you can't. And I said, why can't I? And he said, because I'm the best. Oh, okay. He said, if you will do everything exactly the way I do it, you can be the second best fighter pilot in the squadron. And I said, oh, okay. So you don't have to know anything about investing. The very best book ever written about finance is Extraordinary Popular Delusions and the Madness of Crowds. And it was written around 1850. And there's about 30 examples. Each example is a chapter of the stupidity of people and governments and leaders. And I've written 2 financial books, and one of the financial books was a knockoff of sorts of Extraordinary Popular Delusions, bringing it up to date. People are dumber than bricks, and they always do exactly the wrong time. Now, tell me who the best investor alive today is. He was going to reduce spending by the United States government by $2 trillion. That has lowered to about 150 million, or I'm sorry, 150 billion. $150 billion in U.S. spending is chump change. If you are ever going to solve any problem, you have to accurately define the problem. And the problem is we have too much government. The government is spending too much money. It's bankrupt now, and it is only going to get worse. And the solution has to be to lower spending. Now, Donald Trump came in and he was going to be the peace president, but he's increased spending for the Defense Department by 13%. For what? Okay, who are we at war with that we need to spend 13% more? So we've got a problem that no one is addressing except the market. And the market actually works. And the market's saying, we don't want your crap. We don't want your useless paper. We think you're doing stupid things. We don't trust you. So we're going to destroy your currency. And the Defense Department, the deep state, everybody's part of it. If you look at every fiat currency in history, they end up in the same swamp, the same garbage pit. And that's exactly what's happening to the United States. It's strange enough, and I've got a lot of respect for Martin Armstrong. I don't claim that he's correct in everything, because I know he's wrong sometimes. However, he's one of the few people willing to call a spade. The United States is bankrupt. We need to pay the price, and part of paying the price is to admit you're bankrupt in the first place. So everything that we're doing is just smoothing things over. And I find it very funny that the Fed is buying treasuries and pretending they're doing something. They're not. They're yanking the rug right out from underneath the dollar. And very soon, if you go back to Hemingway.
And just when you think this setup couldn't get any more combustible, the world throws gasoline on the fire. Geopolitical shocks, energy transitions, banking instability, every major crisis unfolding today is a direct catalyst for silver's breakout. Take the rising tensions between NATO and Russia. These aren't just military standoffs, they're triggering massive reallocations of capital, spiking commodity prices, and pushing nations to secure hard assets at any cost. When the global order shakes, silver doesn't just survive, it thrives. Look at Europe. Debt crises are simmering beneath the surface, with major banks showing signs of stress. Investors are pulling deposits, capital controls are tightening, and confidence in financial institutions is crumbling. In this climate, precious metals become more than just a hedge. They become a necessity. And unlike gold, silver has both monetary and industrial value. It's the ultimate hybrid asset. And right now, the world is waking up to that fact. Then there's The green energy transition, one of the most aggressive shifts in modern history. Governments are legislating solar adoption, subsidizing EV production, and rewriting energy policy on the fly. All of it is bullish for silver. But these transitions aren't smooth, they're chaotic, riddled with supply bottlenecks and regulatory hurdles. Every disruption adds pressure to already strained silver supplies, forcing producers and investors to scramble for what little is available. All of these shocks, war, energy, debt, regulation, they're not isolated, they're converging. And in the center of that convergence is silver, uniquely positioned to benefit from every crack in the system. When the world scrambles for stability, silver will be the asset no one can afford to ignore.
I'm going to really climb out on a limb here because I'm going to suggest something to you nobody's ever suggested before. The solution to the financial problem is so simple that sooner or later we're going to go to it just because there's no other possible alternative. Now, Quentin Henney happens to be my best friend. He's probably one of the top 2 or 3 geologists in the world. He and I sat down almost 20 years ago, and we designed a new currency. And the new currency is a currency that every country in the world could use. And it was based on gold and silver, but instead of pesos or dollars or pounds or lira, it was gold in grams and silver in grams. Now, if you go back to this glory age of financial change from 1825 to 1900, the British sovereign was interchangeable with the French franc, was interchangeable with the German mark, the Italian lira, the Mexican peso. So they were all based on gold, okay? And it was easy to figure out the difference. But rather than have pesos, liras, marks, pounds, you have grams. I believe it will happen, and people are inching into it now. But if you've ever known somebody that was a drunk, okay, for them to stop drinking, there has to be a crisis, and they have to hit bottom. And we are so close to hitting the bottom financially, literally around the world. I think the BRICS is succeeding, but if you look at the financial situation in China, or you look at the financial situation in Japan, there are a lot of countries in deep, serious trouble financially, and it all goes back to the same thing. And that's having a currency that has no value. Okay, if you don't know what value is and all you know is price, you can't run an economy. Okay, and if I would be very interested when gold hit $3,500. Weren't you a little shocked? Because I looked at it as, holy cow, I never dreamed of $3,500 gold. But what should be obvious is that wasn't the top. The top is in front of us. We don't know where it is. We don't know if it's 5,000, 10,000, or 50,000. But what's happening, gold is not increasing in value. The dollar is decreasing in value, and the solution is simple. Get rid of the gold, or get rid of the dollar, get rid of the pound, get rid of the lira, the marks, all of the currencies, go to gold.
So why is all of this happening now? Why are we staring down the barrel of a silver supernova in 2025 and not 10 years from now? Because every pressure point we've discussed is peaking at the same time. It's not just BRICS decoupling from the dollar or the surge in industrial demand or the manipulated pricing structure. It's all of it, hitting simultaneously in a way the market has never seen before. The timing isn't coincidental. It's structural. Every system that once supported the old financial order is now straining or outright failing. The dollar is losing trust on the global stage, central banks are scrambling for alternatives, and inflation is eroding the value of every fiat currency in circulation. At the same time, silver is being swallowed by solar production, EV rollouts, and AI infrastructure. And as institutions begin to demand physical delivery, not paper contracts, the illusion of abundant supply starts to vanish. Then add the gold to silver ratio, off the charts, and geopolitical chaos that is pushing sovereign nations to secure physical commodities with military-level urgency. Silver is no longer just a precious metal. It's a monetary refuge, an industrial necessity, and a geopolitical chess piece, all rolled into one. This convergence is rare. These kinds of macroeconomic alignments don't come around often, and when they do, the moves can be historic. We're not looking at a gradual climb to $50 or $75. We're looking at the kind of revaluation that only happens when a system breaks, and silver becomes the release valve. The world is waking up and the repricing is already beginning. The next move? It won't be a rally. It'll be a rupture.
And the sentiment of Japan is saying, we don't want your trash treasury notes. We don't want your tariffs on Japanese cars. The Chinese are saying, we want gold and silver. And they're loading up and they're stocking up with real assets. And people in the West are stocking up with fake assets right at the very top. So the future is exceptionally easy to predict. And for anyone not prepared, it's going to be catastrophic. And you hinted a couple of times in here that we're in the acceleration phase. I think the world's financial system, and especially the U.S. dollar and the U.S. Financial system, it was about to go curvilinear. I think it's so close that it's going to surprise everybody, including me. It's the cleanest trash you can possibly have. And Warren Buffett has known for years that we're about to fall off a cliff. It's absolutely typical of retail investors. There's 100 reasons to buy at every top, and there's 100 reasons to sell at every bottom. And you don't have to know anything about interest rates or the Fed or the Treasury or Democrats or anything else to make money profitably. All you have to do is follow the crowd and do exactly the opposite. And strange enough, I'm not really a gold bug. Okay, but I look at gold as an insurance policy against financial chaos. And I've been buying gold since 1968 when I was paying $35 an ounce. And
everything is now in place. The paper markets are cracking, industrial demand is accelerating, and BRICS nations are actively rewriting the rules of global trade, all while fiat currencies buckle under the weight of inflation and debt. This isn't speculation anymore. It's the logical result of a system stretched beyond its limits. Silver isn't just poised for a rally. It's standing at the epicenter of a financial reset that could catapult its price beyond $1,000 an ounce. The dollar is being drained of trust. The COMEX is being drained of physical, and the global economy is being drained of certainty. And in the middle of all that chaos stands silver, scarce, essential, and still widely misunderstood. But that misunderstanding won't last. As the collapse of fiat systems accelerates, silver will become the one asset every investor, institution, and sovereign state rushes to secure. When that happens, supply won't just tighten, it'll evaporate. So if you're watching this, don't wait for the headlines. Don't wait for the price spike. The smart money is already making its move. Silver's time isn't coming, it's here. Make sure you're ready before the rest of the world figures it out. And remember, this is not financial advice. Always do your own research and speak to a licensed professional before making any financial decisions.